And that's just how it works. Bottom line, no matter who you are, no matter what disadvantage you feel you are at, you still can get the results and it will work. You just have to. Welcome back to the Case by Case Training Podcast. My name is Ben Case and this is episode 10 of the podcast. And in today's episode, we're going to be looking at what things can aid in getting you in a calorie deficit. And I'm not talking about exercise or cardio or going on a diet or taking a supplement. I'm talking about what each of those things is accomplishing on a deeper level. What are the actual things that are happening behind the scenes that are causing you to potentially lose weight when you go on a diet or when you exercise or when you take a supplement or whatever it may be. And when you understand how this works, it can help you to really start using those solutions and understanding how they aid in weight loss and being able to use them as tools and maybe taking a little bit of each to ultimately help you to start to see results and lose weight. And so we've already talked about the fact that a calorie deficit is necessary in order to lose weight. And so one of the things is figuring out how you personally are going to get into a calorie deficit. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. Now, you may remember in a past episode when we were talking about how to figure out your exact calorie needs for you in order to lose weight, or I shouldn't say exact, but rather figuring out close to what your calorie needs are and then potentially having to adjust them, which if you've been following along, I've been showing my own progress as I've been losing a little bit of weight here over the last several weeks. And I've had to adjust my calories a couple times as well. And so it's not always a perfect number to start, but it's to get you close. And then you pay attention to what happens and make those adjustments from there. Now, I'm a very visual person, and that's how I like to learn. And so I've seen a few other coaches use some props for helping with visualizing this. And so we're going to do that now because I think it could be helpful in understanding exactly how this works. All right, well, we have a very special guest aiding us in our visual aid today. These are my favorite toy of my 2-year-old daughter's.
Ooh, what other toys are in here?
Her Magnetiles. And I've seen other people do props for this visual aid, and I thought it's very helpful. I've never seen it done with Magnetiles, so this will be maybe a first. We've got 2 pillars here, though, that are representing 2 different things. So the blue Magnetiles represent the calories that you consume in a day, and these tiles over here, there's a few different colors, and we're going to talk about them, but they represent the calories that you burn in a given day. Now, we're going to break down these calories here that you burn in a given day a little bit further. So, first off, let's start with the yellow and red. We're going to take away the orange and the green, and we're going to look at these yellow and red tiles first. The yellow tiles are your resting metabolic rate, or the calories that you burn while doing nothing. So think metabolism, metabolic rate, right? And so these are just calories that your body burns while doing absolutely nothing at all. And they're just simply calories that your body's burning for energy that you need to survive and to exist. And so this is your BMR. We talked about this in a previous video when figuring out the calories that you need to consume in order to lose weight for your body in order to be in a calorie deficit. We talked about BMR, which stands for basal metabolic rate, and it's essentially this right here. It is also including this, though, which is the thermic effect of food, also contributing to metabolism. So essentially there's foods that are they take more energy to burn, and so they increase metabolism slightly. And so there's a small effect here that plays a slight role. And then also we have calories that are burned through activity. And that's what these green and orange tiles represent, are the calories that you burn through moving and being active. And so there's 2 different ones here to represent, though. We've got these calories, which are burned through just simple activity that you're doing every single day. You're waking up, brushing your teeth, you're walking to the car, you're cleaning the dishes, you're vacuuming, whatever it is, going grocery shopping. It's not intentional exercise, but it is activity of some form. You're moving, and it's not calories that you're burning while resting. So that's going to represent these calories, which makes up a little bit of a chunk here. It's about 20 to 30% of the calories that you're going to burn probably in a given day. Depending, again, on how active you are in a given day, it can fluctuate slightly. And then the last one that we're going to look at is calories that you burn through intentional exercise. So going to the gym or playing a sport or doing some sort of activity that is intentional exercise. And so we're gonna look at each of those and talk a little bit about them and how it affects, obviously, weight loss. And so you can see immediately that if you have a slow metabolism, some people do have slower metabolisms, that's going to affect your weight gain, and you're going to recognize, hey, I'm gaining weight, and maybe you eat fairly clean and fairly healthy, and maybe you're eating some thermogenic foods, maybe you're adding in some exercise, and you're still gaining weight. Well, it could be that you do have a little bit slower metabolism. That's possible, but it doesn't mean that you can't lose weight, which is what a lot of people sometimes think. So we're going to talk about how you could still lose weight regardless of what this is, or for anybody, this is all going to look slightly different. You might have one extra tile on one of these and one less on another, and so everybody's going to be a little bit different on these, and that's okay. It doesn't mean you can't lose weight. It just means that we need to figure it out for you and how that's going to work best. And we also are going to talk about some of the issues within the health and fitness industry when it comes to each of these things and how they focus on them, and how there's maybe a lack of communication or understanding, and it can really hinder your progress, or at least, if nothing else, hinder your long-term results. And so we're going to look at each of those, because ultimately I want to help you be able to get results and then keep those results as well. And that's been the point of this whole podcast. And I think that this video today is going to really help represent how the way I approach things is a little bit different than a lot of the health and fitness industry. And I'm hoping that with these visual aids, we can kind of really understand and see the difference here. So first and foremost, we're going to actually balance this out a little bit differently to represent more of what probably the average person who is struggling with their weight is starting at. And then we're going to look at it and talk through it. So a lot of times, more realistically, it's going to look something like this to begin with. And so you're not burning enough calories to make up for the calories you're consuming, and therefore you're going to gain weight over time. And a lot of times also appetite grows as we continue to eat more. So let's just say, even if it was maybe here to begin, appetite increases. As we eat more food, we will eat more food. And as we gain weight, I don't have a tile stack here to represent weight, but as you gain weight, you're also going to increase appetite because your body's need increases. And so you'll continue to probably add a little bit extra on this over time as well as you increase weight. And that just makes the surplus even greater, and it will become harder and harder because you're just continuing to go in the wrong direction. So a lot of people get to this point, and that's when they recognize, hey, I need some help. I don't know what to do. I want to lose some weight. And so there's a few different methods that are focused on in the health and fitness industry in order to help you lose weight. And I want to kind of dive into each of them to really show you how this works and hopefully give you some helpful information here. So one of the first things that will come to mind with weight loss is obviously dieting. And so with dieting, whether it is a restrictive diet that is restricting calories or restricting specific foods or restricting sugar, certain contents in certain foods, no matter what the diet is, ultimately, and I've talked about this in several of my videos, the reason you're losing weight isn't because of a certain food you cut out, isn't because of a certain ingredient in a food that you're cutting out. It's not because of any of those things. It's because what happens when you do that is you end up in a calorie deficit. Now, the reality is a lot of restrictive diets really put you in too big of a calorie deficit, in my opinion, to where it's starting to get a little unhealthy. You're lacking some nutrients that are necessary at this point. And additionally, you're probably going to lack energy. You're going to be very exhausted, not fully recovering. If you're adding an exercise, it's also going to, make this gap even bigger. Where's my orange tiles? and then you're in such a big extreme calorie deficit that yes, you will lose a lot of weight, and you'll lose a lot of weight pretty fast, and that seems good. But there's a lot of adverse effects as well. One of which is oftentimes it actually will also decrease this, which is, if you remember, your resting metabolic rate. And we don't really want to do that, because what happens a lot of times at the end of these diets, whether it be 30 day, 60 day, 90 day, whatever it is, it's pretty extreme, pretty intense usually, or it's pretty restrictive. And again, it doesn't matter what the restriction is, if it's taking out carbs, taking out fats, taking out meats, whatever it is. You take out an entire food group, you're probably going to end up in a pretty extreme calorie deficit. Intermittent fasting, whatever it is, really, it doesn't matter. Why you're losing weight is because of this. You're in a calorie deficit. Now, what happens a lot of times at the end of these diets is you go back to normal for you, because you're not going to be able to do this long term and sustain it. And so a lot of times we add this back in, and even if it's a little bit less than before, we've also lost this now. This is a little bit slower, and it can affect the the gap here, and now you're back to putting weight on. And so sometimes people end up actually even putting more weight on after than they did before, because maybe they also stop being as active once they stop the diet, and whatever else it may be. They add in this again, and ultimately they undo a lot of the progress that they saw. And this is where we see a lot of yo-yo results, because what are you going to have to do to get results again? You got to go back on a diet. That's how you know how to get results is, hey, I got to do this diet in order to lose weight. And then when you stop the diet, you put the weight back on again. And so it's kind of this constant up and down battle. Now, another way that, and we're going to look at the solution to all this as well, but another way that the health and fitness industry really focuses on weight loss is by maybe intense exercise. So they try to do it through focusing on this, which if you focus on one aspect, it's got to be pretty intense and extreme in order to get results. Just like when we focused on just calorie deficit, you got to be in a pretty big deficit. When you're in a surplus here, you got to go swing in pretty far the opposite way in order to get results, right? Well, the same's going to be true if the only focus is on increased exercise. So in order to make a dent, I'm going to have to really do some intense exercise here. And yes, exercise is also going to speed up that resting metabolic rate, so that will help down there a little bit as well. And so now we can start to balance out through some intense exercise. But what happens sometimes as well is you get a little hungrier because you're burning more energy, and so you need more calories, or at least you feel like you do. And so you might end up still gaining weight even when you add a lot of intense exercise and intense cardio, or whatever the form of exercise is really. Or possibly you just kind of stay the same and you don't see a lot of results. Now, it is possible if you're doing this, maybe you do focus on this as well, and you drop some calories or do a diet in conjunction with the exercise. And yeah, that can certainly make for some better results. However, what often happens is really intense exercise and a really intense restrictive diet. And again, we're just getting into an extreme here where there's a lot of adverse effects by doing it this way. So that's another thing that often is focused on is the intense exercise. And really, there's a lot of issues that can happen with this as well. One of which is you are doing something that really you haven't worked up to. You're going in full force, which can obviously cause injury because you're not used to it. Your body's not prepared for it. But additionally, even if it doesn't cause any injury, it can also just be something that is really, really not maintainable long term. You burn out and get fatigued very easily from it because it's just too much for starting out. It's not something you could stick with for the long term. So maybe you could do it for 30 days and get through it and it's miserable, but something that you're not going to really want to do for the rest of your life. It's like starting training for a marathon, except you go right to running the marathon and you don't even build up to it and get your body used to what you're doing. And so there's lots of negatives to jumping right in too extreme. on that front. But again, it gets faster results. It's going to be a little bit more drastic results. And that's what a lot of times the health and fitness industry is focused on, because it markets well. People like the idea of quick and fast results. They want immediate results. They don't want to be patient. And also, they're not thinking about all the adverse effects and the longevity of it as well. So the health and fitness industry, by and large, they're not worried about if you keep the results. They're not thinking through all that. It's just, hey, what's the fastest way we can get people results to, get some head turns? And so extreme workouts, very low calorie intake. And again, they're not telling you, hey, that's what we're doing. They're saying, oh, it's this specific diet or this specific diet or this specific workout program. And at the end of the day, what it comes down to is each of those things is creating a calorie deficit. And yeah, why don't they just call it that? Well, because then it doesn't market their individual product as well, because they want to be unique and say, hey, this is a special thing that we do different than someone else. And then that's going to make you be reliant on them, because again, what's going to happen is when you stop doing their thing, whether it's their diet or their exercise program, you will start to put the weight back on, and they know that. And so then you're going to have to rely on their product, because now you're relying on this product for results rather than understanding how this truly works and using tools in your tool belt to get results and keep those results long term. So another one that oftentimes gets focused on is just those daily activities that we talked about, being more intentional, mindful living. Maybe it's you park farther away in the parking lot so that you have to walk a little further. Maybe it's that you take the stairs instead of the elevator, those types of things. And that can certainly add up, and it can increase this again. But again, the problem is, in order for it to make a dent, if we're not focusing on anything else, you're going to have to do a lot. You're going to have to add a lot of extra steps in. You're going to have to add a lot of extra mindfulness into your day just to get to a point where you're making any kind of a dent at all. And again, what can often happen too is then you're more hungry because you've increased your daily activity level. And so if you compensate by eating more, you're still not going to see results, and it's going to be frustrating because you're going to feel like, man, I added all this extra stuff in and I'm still not seeing results. It's not working. Okay, so what about the next one? We've got the thermic effect of food. Now, this is very, very, I would say, kind of hot topic in the health and fitness industry right now. I think it's just maybe something that, it's another marketing opportunity. Let's try to put the focus on something that's a little more unique that people haven't really heard of or thought about very much. But it's really just a fancy way of saying, hey, certain foods, they have a thermic effect, and it can slightly add to this stack here, but it's really not drastic. And so you'll see this through a lot of like superfoods that can increase your metabolism, or avoiding these foods that hurt your metabolism, or supplements. That's a big one, the weight loss supplements that can help increase metabolism. If you look at the ingredients on a lot of those supplements, the weight loss supplements, they're simply just high doses of a lot of these thermic foods that can help you slightly increase metabolism. But again, even if we focus on that, and maybe we can make a little extra increase there, and we've got our daily activity, it's still ultimately not going to do a ton overall. It might help a little bit, and you could see some benefit to that, but ultimately, is it going to make a huge dent? No, not really. It's just kind of a maybe more catchy way to market, because it sounds simple, right? Hey, take this supplement. Hey, add in some green tea. Hey, add in this food or that food, and it'll increase your metabolism, and you'll become a burning machine. And it's like, oh, that sounds great, right? It's super simple, super easy. But does it really work that way? Not really. Now, you might be thinking, well, how can these companies, if it doesn't work, why are they advertising these things? Why are they advertising mindful living or thermic foods or supplements or extreme workout program, whatever it is? If it doesn't work, then why do they advertise it? Well, I'm going to tell you why they do oftentimes work, and I should put work in quotes here, but we're going to look at that. Why does it work? And then another focus, obviously, is the resting metabolic rate, things that will increase that, which again goes along with the thermic effect of food. Focusing on certain types of foods that we can eat, focusing on getting proper sleep, focusing on just different things that are going to increase this. Adding in activity will increase this as well. But again, ultimately, is this adding, one tile here going to be the big game changer in your weight loss journey? Probably not. And so let's talk about what the real solution is and what it should look like for you, and also how some of these companies do get results, but why you want to be aware of how this works. So let's talk first about the thermic effect of food. Let's go back down here really quick. So supplements, programs that, maybe you've seen advertisements that they catch your eye because they talk about certain foods and food groups, and this food will help you burn weight, this superfood or whatever it is. A lot of times there's a couple possibilities here. One is they're selling one thing, but they're also giving something away, or they're selling something else in addition to this. So it's not just this alone. It's, hey, here's this is going to really help you. Also, here's our free workout program that you could do 3 times a week and blah, 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 blah. Or, hey, here's also, we put together a meal plan that includes these foods and blah, 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 blah. But guess what? That meal plan puts you in a deficit. Or they're adding in some exercise program with it that's also going to add in some exercise there. And so what you don't realize is it's not just one thing that's causing the results. There's probably a couple things in conjunction. Another thing is companies like this, they can bank on the fact that because you're trying to get results and you're trying to lose weight, you're probably doing a couple other things as well. You're probably not solely relying on this. You're probably also focusing a little bit better on your diet. Maybe you're doing a diet of some sort, one of those restrictive ones from someone else. Maybe you're adding a little exercise, being a little more active and mindful. They can kind of bank on the fact that if you're trying to lose weight, you're probably looking for a few solutions. Now, what's the problem? There's a couple problems. One is you become reliant on this product, just like we talked about before with the diet. You're becoming reliant on this solution as the end-all be-all to how you lose weight. And if you don't have this, you can't lose weight. And so now you're depending on that. But another problem with all of these things, whether it's the supplement, the workout, the diet, whatever it is, what happens when your stage of life changes and maybe this goes down a little bit because you can't be quite as active. Maybe your job changes and now you sit at a desk all day. What happens when changes happen in your life that can't be accounted for? All of a sudden, when something changes in your life, you're no longer getting results from that supplement or whatever it may be. And so the reality is you didn't learn how to adapt and see, okay, I'm a little less active here now, and so now I need to do this different, or I need to maybe add in a little bit of this or change this slightly. And so, what once worked might no longer work for you. And this happens to people all the time. Something seemed to be working. They thought it was getting them results, but they didn't realize that really it all just comes down to this. Are you in a calorie deficit? And that supplement or that thermic food or that mindful living program you did or that extreme workout program you did, or maybe it wasn't even that extreme, it was just a walking program or something simple, or that diet you went on, whatever it is, you cut out sugar, you did this, you did that. At the end of the day, why did you lose weight? Because you were in a calorie deficit. And there's so many ways to get in that calorie deficit, as you're probably starting to see. And so the thing is, though, you become reliant on the thing that you thought worked for you because you're kind of misidentifying what really worked, because you're trusting the advertisement of the product that's saying this is what's going to cause weight loss for you. They're not telling you that, hey, this is what causes weight loss and this is how we're going to try to help you get there, is by focusing on this one aspect. And so now you're dependent on that product, and yet stage of life changes and that product doesn't work anymore. And so you're going, well, I don't know what to do. I'm at a loss here. Maybe I just have a slow metabolism. Maybe it's just because I'm getting older, all these other things. And you don't realize, well, sure, like there could be different things like that impact it. but it doesn't mean it's impossible to get in a calorie deficit. But you have to know that that's what gets the results first. You have to recognize, hey, I'm just not in a calorie deficit anymore. Why is it? Maybe it's a number of reasons. Maybe it is something down here. Maybe it is something here. But what can we do to get you back into a calorie deficit? And so there's a few ways to do it. And I don't want you to just get fixated on one, because what happens is extremes. If it's all this, it's got to be extreme. If it's all this, it's got to be pretty extreme, right? And so what we want to do instead is what I call solution stacking. And this is where we create a customized plan for you that is based on your unique stage of life, your goals, your the level of intensity that you want to have with this, but also something sustainable and long-term maintainable. We want to think about, hey, what do I want my life to look like 5 years from now, 10 years from now? Think of yourself in shape. So, we want to go 30 days, I'm in shape and I got these big results. 60 days, I lost all the weight and I'm in shape. Okay, great. Let's just say that happens, you get there. What do you want the rest of your life to look like once you're in shape? You want to stay in shape. You want 5 years from now to be healthy and to be happy and to be in shape. Well, think about what you want your daily habits to look like. Do you want to be on a diet for 5 years, for 10 years? No. Do you want to be doing 1,000 burpees a week for all that time? No, not really. We don't want to do the things that we had to do to get to that weight goal in the 30 days or the 60 days. I don't want to have to do that stuff long term. Well, then guess what? You're going to undo all the progress you got because you stopped doing the things that got you there, and now you're just going back to the same thing as before. And so, you become reliant on that specific product. So how do we create something that's long-term, sustainable, and maintainable, something that, it's not so extreme that I'm miserable and I hate it, but I could do it for 30 days and I can get the results. Okay, but you're not going to keep the results. You got to be able to do something. The way you get the results also needs to be the way you keep the results, okay? Okay, so solution stacking is something that I've created that is essentially taking a little bit of each of these things, and it's not something I've made up that doesn't exist. There are people out there, are programs out there. Usually it's when you get a trainer, if you hire a trainer or if you hire a coach of some sort, they're going to be doing exactly what I'm talking about. They're going to be doing solution stacking where they're giving you a little bit of exercise, they're helping you a little bit with your nutrition, and they're helping you be a little more mindful, and maybe they're adding in some, hey, you could eat this food or add this in. It's high thermic food. And they're doing a combination to where it's not just so intense on one of them and not maintainable. And so this is one of the benefits of having a coach that can help you do a little bit of each. But if you're trying to do it on your own and maybe you can't afford a coach or you just can't afford, something private like that, then you could still get results and you can still accomplish it. You just need to simply understand how it works. So we've talked about in several of the past videos how to figure out your calorie needs. What calories do I need to take in order to be in a deficit? So we've talked about that in previous videos. We've talked about how to use MyFitnessPal to track your calories. And so if you do that alone, and let's say you don't have the activity in there yet, if you do that alone and you figure out, okay, here's the calories I need to consume in order to lose so much weight by this amount of time, and I've talked about not going super extreme in this, guess what? You can do this and still eat foods that you enjoy as long as you're in a calorie deficit. Because what causes weight loss? This. Not cutting out this food or sugar or this or that or the other. It's just being in a calorie deficit. And so as long as you create that and you know, here's the amount of calories I need to eat, then you will lose weight. Now, add in a little bit more mindfulness. Hey, you know what? In addition, I'm also going to be a little bit more mindful. I'm going to, every day when I go park at work, I'm going to park in the farther parking spot so that I can get a little extra walking both to the building and back to my car. And, maybe you start adding in something here and it increases there. Maybe you do add in some more foods, more protein and things that are a little more high thermic effect. And that helps a little bit as well. And maybe you add in a little bit of exercise. Maybe it's not super intense. Maybe it's just a little bit extra of intentional exercise a couple times a week. And it's going to be something that, it's not going to hurt you because it's not super intense to start. You're starting where you can to start getting results. And see how we've created this without doing an extreme of any of them. And in fact, you could do this if that's a little difficult. Hey, guess what? I'm still in a deficit, even with adding a few calories back in, because I've added a mix of each of these. And so it's important to recognize that, hey, at the end of the day, it's about creating this deficit, and there's small little habit changes that I can do to get there. And when you create a deficit this way, where it's not just an extreme of any of these things, it's not going to have adverse effects. It's also going to be maintainable because it's not so drastic, it's not so extreme. You'll hardly even notice that you're making these changes because they're slight changes. Just one little thing at a time, one little habit change, do a little better here, do a little better here, a little better there, adding in each of them. And it's creating an overall lifestyle that down the road you look at and you go, yeah, that's what I want. That's essentially what I want. 5 years, 10 years from now, that's the person I envision, is somebody who's just a little bit more active and can eat the things I like, but eats in moderation. Okay, so let's reverse engineer that and see, what does that look like? It's not hop on a 30-day diet. It's not start doing some extreme intense workout program. And again, if you can maintain any of those things for the rest of your life, and that's how you want to do it, and you think you can do that, then that's fine. But the average person they're so focused on reaching their weight goal, they're not thinking about what it's going to look like to maintain that. And so we need to think about what thing could I do long term? Well, if you just do a little bit of each of these, it's going to be a lot easier than doing extreme on any of them. And then guess what? The great part is once you get to your weight goal, if I had tiles here to represent that, let's say you get to your weight goal, now we can actually add back in calories to a maintenance. Because now all I have to do is maintain my weight. And so now I'm not in as big of a deficit. Your calorie need will drop slightly, so you won't be able to eat quite as many calories as before, but you can increase from the deficit that you're in. And additionally, even if you do change something like this a little bit in a stage of life, well, then you go, hey, you know what? I'm not able to work out for this month because of this or that. I'm having a surgery. I had a surgery on my knee. I know that that's going to affect things, right? Okay, well, during that time, I'm going to do this. And then once I can actually add the activity back in, then I'm going to add the calories back up. And so it's just keeping a balance of recognizing stage of life. Hey, this stage of life, I'm a little less active in this way. My job changed. I'm sitting at a desk more. So maybe I need to add in more intentionality here or here. And it's just recognizing different stages of life are going to call for adjustments. And now that you know what causes weight loss and causes you to maintain the results that you've gotten, when that stage of life changes, you're not scrambling going, well, this product isn't working anymore, or this thing that I used to rely on is not working for me anymore. You just go, okay, hey, here's why it's happening this way, because this changed. Ask yourself, what changed in my life? Am I a little less active than I was before? Am I working out as much as I was before? Am I consuming more calories than I was before, or higher? Maybe it's the types of foods you're eating are just a little higher in calories. Recognizing those changes. If I want to eat more, maybe I'm willing to exercise a little more to be able to do that and still not lose or still not gain weight. Maybe stage of life changes. I can't exercise quite as much. Maybe I do more active stuff down here. Whoops. It's making adjustments based on stages of life and learning to create habits that you can maintain and stick with, and simply paying attention to, hey, what's happening through the things I'm doing. And if I'm still gaining weight, it's not, oh, this doesn't work, or the calorie counting doesn't work, or this doesn't work, no, it just means something's off. It might mean that you're not getting enough of this, or if you don't, you're like, I maxed out on that, I can't add any more of that. But if you think that's the solution and you think that's the only way to lose weight is I gotta exercise, what happens when you're like, I'm already exercising 5 times a week, I can't add a 6th day in? Well, guess what? There's other ways, right? There's other things we can focus on. We could do this. We could do a number of things. And so it's just simply understanding that, hey, all these things here that we just talked about, they all play a role in your weight loss and in maintaining the weight that you've lost. And so when you understand that, you can take a little bit of each and figure out which one will be the easiest for me to add in right now and to start helping towards results. And if it's not enough, I added that in and it still didn't get me the results, well, let's add in a little more, or maybe we need to add in something different. So I hope that this will be helpful for you, because again, just remember, you're probably right now, you're probably here, and you're probably here to start, okay? And that's a pretty decent gap that we need to fill in order to start seeing results. And so simply doing this, you're still not going to see results. It might be a little less of a surplus than you were in, and that's great, but don't get discouraged. Don't think, well, exercise doesn't work. I tried it, it didn't work. And I even added more exercise. And guess what? It still didn't work. So exercise just must not be the thing that works for me. Well, no, that's not true. You didn't close the gap enough. You still have too much of a gap here. And maybe you tried counting calories and you were tracking, but you were slightly off. You know, it's possible that what you thought you were burning wasn't actually as much as you were burning. Maybe you thought you were burning this much and you're only burning that much. And so you're not seeing the weight come off. Or maybe you are tracking your calories and you feel like you're being fairly accurate, but maybe you're just slightly off on something. You know, there is a 20% variance allowed on the labels for calories. So you could be slightly off and not realize it. It doesn't mean it doesn't work. A calorie deficit always works. Tracking works if you're accurate. You might not be accurate, and that might not be your fault. Again, like I said, it could be that you are tracking correctly, but you're just still not in a deficit. Then that's the reason you're not getting the results, because, okay, the conclusion, I must just not be in a deficit yet. So either I need to lower this a little more, or if it's already pretty low for me and I don't really want to lower it anymore, then maybe I just need to change something else over here to accommodate for it. How'd you get in there? And listen, if you want to start a little bit more intense for a time period that you know, hey, for 30 days, I'm going to be a little bit more intense here. I'm going to be a little bit more intense on this right here, the exercise, in order to get a little bit faster results and see the results happen. I'm not saying that that's terrible. I do think slower is usually better, but I get it. You want to get results. You want to see the weight come off. And so even if we do that, that's okay if you still understand how this works. Because at the end of the day, when you get to the goal and you lose the weight, just remember that's not the goal. It's not the end. The goal is a lifestyle, right, that you can maintain. And so if you remember this, once you get there, that it wasn't just some diet that you had to do or some supplement that you had to take or some workout program that you had to do, but you recognize it's a combination of all these. Now, once you finish, you get to that goal weight, you go, okay, hey, I can afford to add a little bit of this back in. I can afford to slightly decrease the intensity here. And I've built myself a maintenance now that I can maintain. That is something that's sustainable for me. And, I know how to get those results and to keep them. There's so many different ways that you can do it. There's so many, it's each person is going to be able to do it in a different way for them that works for their life, that works for their stage of life, works for their circumstance. And there's not just a one size fits all. Everybody can get there slightly different. The one size fits all is that you have to be in a calorie deficit. And that is just across the board. The fitness industry has glorified how they get you into a calorie deficit in order to make it all fancy and confusing so that you rely on their product and you don't actually know how to get the results for yourself. And so what I'm trying to help you understand is there's so many ways you can do it. You just have to create a calorie deficit and maintain it. And if you start putting on weight, once you've lost all the weight and you start gaining it back, hit the brakes and recognize, whoa, I'm in a surplus. I'm gaining back the weight that I just lost and I got to change something. I got to adjust because I'm not in a maintenance right now. Now, all of this is intended to be helpful for you. I understand that it can maybe be a little overwhelming at first, but don't let it be. Just recognize that little habit changes are going to be things that add up over time to create a lifestyle that is maintainable and sustainable for you, and one that you can enjoy and still get results and know how you got there and how to keep the results so that you're not relying on other products, but instead you're using them as tools. You're solution stacking. You're taking a little bit of each of the solutions out there in the industry, and you're going, I'm using each of these to my advantage to build myself a deficit that I can maintain and ultimately eventually maintain the results of as well. If you haven't watched the previous episodes yet, where I show you how to calculate the calories that you're taking in and be able to track and know the amount that you need in order to lose weight, you should go back and watch that episode, as well as the ones on how to use MyFitnessPal as a tool to help you lose weight as well by tracking your calories and knowing what you're taking in. It's going to help you to be more flexible in your diet as well, so you're not having to do restrictive diets in order to be in a calorie deficit. And we talk about, like I said, the BMR and TDEE, so the amount of calories that you're burning in a day roughly. It may not be exact or perfect, so remember, if you aren't seeing results based on the calories that you input, it just means that probably the TDEE, that total daily energy expenditure calculation, was slightly off. Maybe it is because you have a slightly slower metabolism. It's not an excuse, though. It still works the same way for you. Even if your metabolism is a little slower, it just means you got to decrease this or increase something else. And the good thing is your metabolism can speed up as you lose weight and as you increase things like exercise. If you add in some resistance training, if you increase your protein intake, those types of things will aid in speeding that metabolism up over time, and it's going to start working for you. And so, yeah, you probably starting out do have a little slower metabolism. Probably starting out, your TDEE might be a little lower than what you think it is initially if you're not seeing results. But that doesn't mean it doesn't work. It just means you need to make adjustments and recognize, hey, I must not be in a calorie deficit yet. That is the conclusion. That is the reality. And so it's not an excuse. It's just, hey, I'm not there yet. And that's a bummer because maybe your friend who's the same weight as you and same everything else is in a calorie deficit and they're eating more calories than you. Bummer, okay? It's just how it is, and you're going to have to either lower the calories slightly more, or you're going to have to increase the activity, be a little bit more mindful. And again, you don't know. They might be eating more thermic foods than you. They might be slightly more active than you are in a day. It's hard to say. It really is. It's hard to know the differences from person to person. So you can't compare. Don't compare yourself to other people on, what they're eating versus what you're eating or the amount in order to lose weight. You're unique. You are who you are. And ultimately, you still have a number that's going to put you in a deficit. And you still have things you can add in that are going to aid in that deficit. And that's just how it works. Bottom line, no matter who you are, no matter what disadvantage you feel you are at, you still can get the results and it will work. You just have to keep building it and working at it. That is it for this one. I hope that this illustration, this visual aid, was helpful for you, and we will continue with more podcasts like this one to help you get long-term results and to change your life for the better. And I will see you in the next one.